Broadcasting from Singapore and broadcasting all around the world. You're listening to the EdTech Chat Podcast, taking the pulse of educators from all over the globe and bringing what you need every week. Now, over to your host, Craig Kemp.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the EdTech Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Kemp, and I'm thrilled to have your support. This podcast is sponsored by Schoolbox. Schoolbox is an all-in-one learning management system, community portal, and engagement platform for K-12 schools all over the globe. Schoolbox makes your life easy with everything you need at the touch of a button all in one place, so your school can connect, communicate, and collaborate with parents, teachers, students, and your school community from one platform. Get connected at schoolbox.com.au. The links are in the description below. As I've shared before, I continue to work with the incredibly talented Mark Quinn to improve the final audio quality of this podcast. He has his own podcast production studio that provides editing and mastering services to content creators. To connect with Mark, please see the details in the podcast notes below. Last week, I talked about planning for the future and short, mid, and long-term plans. I hope you had the opportunity to think about these and write things down for future use. If you haven't, go back and listen to last week's episode and spend some time pausing as I give you prompts to write some initial starting points for your short, mid, and long-term plans. This week, I wanted you to think about school culture. I have mentioned in previous episodes the importance of school culture in developing a successful EdTech strategy. I also mentioned the quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," which helps us understand the importance of a school culture in the development and implementation of any plan of strategy. What does EdTech look like in your school, and what are people's attitudes towards it? Is culture an important part of your organization's beliefs and attitudes? What do they place emphasis on? How can you support, grow, and develop your school's culture to positively impact the value that people place on EdTech to improve teaching and learning practices? I'll talk a little more about my thoughts on school culture coming up soon. I look forward to hearing from you on social media with your responses. As the theme this week is all about school culture, I wanted to chat to a leader in my part of the world, who I've been connected with for many years, who also strives to lead with excellence and to always develop a positive school culture. He was head of a school here in Singapore and now leads a school in the Middle East. Let's listen to my chat with Glen Radjokovich. Today, I have the honour of speaking with Glen Radjokovich. Glen is an experienced international school leader with recent roles as principal at Canadian International School in Singapore and head of school at GEMS International School in Dubai. He's an advocate for developing positive school culture and supporting and encouraging positive parent engagement and communication. Glen, it's an incredible pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a real pleasure to be here, Craig. Thanks for inviting me.
You're so welcome. Let's go. Why don't you start by telling us about your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
Okay, well, I've been head of GIS for 3 years now, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I guess I'm responsible for building a learning-focused community, essentially creating a petri dish of excellence and enabling others to take risks and discover their potential. I try and get out of the way as much as I can and allow the students and teachers to grow and continue to learn and push boundaries.
And it sounds like an exciting environment to be a part of. And I know that you're doing some great things with technology and technology integration in general. As a school leader, what's your best advice for educators in relation to educational technology?
I think for me, the understanding over time, and I've been ahead now for 20 years, so the understanding over time that specific technology changes frequently. Culture remains key. So the focus on the cultural development of your organisation and the people within your organisation, sort of their readiness to be able to adapt and take on different technologies, not the technology specifically itself. So staying in tune with your community's needs, listening to your faculty, to your students, and ensuring that they help drive the decisions is really, really important. I mean, otherwise we'll be sticking to certain technology that suits a certain aspect of the community, not understanding everybody's needs. So it's getting, I guess, all sides of the beach balls perspectives in order to make the right decisions for technology. And I think the other thing that's become particularly clear to me over time is that different technology suits different communities and cultures. And it's about finding the right technology for that particular moment or for that particular learner or teacher or school in order to ensure a perfect fit.
It's a great way of putting it, Glen, and I like that a lot of the things you talk about come down to school culture. Tell us a little bit about your leadership style and how you build and develop that positive school culture that you've talked about.
Well, I try and be an accessible leader and someone who ensures that everyone within the community, all stakeholders, has a voice. I think that's particularly important. As a school, GS has been particularly successful when it comes to what I'd say are our cultural surveys or getting information in from the community, with 96% for our CAS survey, 100% from our staff survey, and 95% during the remote learning period from all our stakeholders. It sort of indicates that the culture is going relatively well within the school. Particularly important to us really is that culture isn't a byproduct of being in the environment together, but it's something that we need to strategically work on as an organisation and as a group of leaders. So I think, the collective understanding of how culture works and the things that we need to do within a community to ensure successful cultures is key. And we do a lot of work on that. So some of it comes down to the academic understanding of culture development and doing focuses on things like Tuckerman's model and understanding that the stages we go through of team development each year as we have new community members join us and how we norm those understandings and beliefs and skill sets, and that we have to revisit those each year. And when you recognise that and you recognise the different perspectives that people have and why they have them, it's easier to cope with conflict, it's easier to cope with frustrations and to be able to celebrate milestones in cultural development. So I think those are some of the really important aspects. I think additionally, as a leader, I've always tended to hire with culture in mind. With a senior leadership team and have a focus on the people that we're bringing into the community, because you can obviously teach and advance people's skills and credentials, but you can't change their personality. So we really look closely at the fit of a person and how they will contribute to the overall culture of a community, and also try and be transparent when people are joining the community as what we're about. Because again, a bit like technology, right? There's different cultures that fit different people and different communities that fit different people. And if you can be transparent about what you are as an organisation and what you believe in and what's important to you, then the people that are likely to join you understand that, then the fit is going to be a lot easier and the success will come as a result of that.
I love your discussion around the human resources, because I talk a lot as well in the work that I do about the importance of human resources and how a lot of schools don't emphasize that human resources importance as well as they should. And it's good to hear that you do. One of the tools that I know you're a big advocate of and you talk about that has been used in your schools for the past few years is Schoolbox. Tell us a little bit more about your experience with this tool and why it's become your go-to in schools that you've worked in.
Yeah, sure. So I first came across Schoolbox when I was working in Canadian International School in Singapore, where we implemented it after a pretty rigorous review of the platforms that were in the environment at the time. And it was a successful platform to implement. It's relatively easy to use, and therefore when we transferred to GIS, the school I'm in currently, where we had at the time I think about 9 different logins and portals for different ways of communicating with our stakeholders in the community, and frustrations that I guess came with using all those different platforms, we were looking for something that was a one sign-in, easy to use platform for communication, teachers, students and parents to be able to share and collaborate and access all the information within the community. And Schoolbox certainly ticked each of the boxes we were looking for. It certainly reduces the aspect of the multiple sign-ins, because it's a single sign-in for parents and teachers. It's user-friendly, so that was important, and able to ensure that it was easily adaptable, that teachers and students would be able to pick it up and use it readily without a great deal of professional development. I like that you can brand it effectively to meet your school's needs, so it sort of doesn't really sit there as Schoolbox. For us, it sits there currently as MyGIS, so a platform with a name that we've created, and it's branded and stickered in that way. From a marketing perspective, I think that appeals. And then, of course, it has comprehensive tools within it in terms of analysis to enable us to understand how effectively it's being used and how we can tweak it to use it more effectively with the community, what the response rates are, the access, the number of users that are using it at any time. So it sort of stacks up as a really user-friendly platform, and certainly the response from our community members, both students and parents, has been really positive with regards to it.
And how has Schoolbox helped you build that school culture? How has it helped you share learning experiences and connect and engage and communicate with your parent community?
Well, for GIS, we're a very international school. We have 93 nationalities, 1,400 students, and we have a lot of parents who travel, not so much during remote learning, but prior to the lockdown of airports who travelled extensively. So them missing out on what happens in the school is quite commonplace, and having a platform that enabled them to access the day-to-day and to be able to see the assemblies and see the work their children are doing, and to be able to have conversations with with teachers and be able to easily access the units that they were sharing or reports, etc., in one place was really, really beneficial. And so Schoolbox has provided that for us. The feedback that we've had from all the stakeholders is that it's a very versatile platform. It basically enables all three sides of the triangles, the parents, teachers and students, to be on the same page, right? Each of those is essential, I think, in successful learning conversations. If you're missing a side of the triangle collapses. And so in that regard, it's been really fortuitous for us to sort of invest in a platform that enables all those conversations to happen. Nothing's hidden. It's easy to access and easy for parents to use as well, which has been a big plus. I've also found that Schoolbox as a company or a team have been really responsive for us when it comes to professional development for faculty, or in terms of addressing a need. If there's been a glitch in the system or something that's happening that is not beneficial, they've been really quick to jump on board and say, hey, Lee, let us work with you there, Glenn, to resolve it, which has made a big difference going forward for the success of the program.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Glenn. I know that you're a huge advocate of the product and a great example of how it can be used successfully in large international schools globally. What's the best way for the listeners of this podcast to follow and connect with you, maybe about Schoolbox or maybe just about you, your job or your school?
Sure. I've got a LinkedIn account, so they can jump on and find me at Glen Radjokovich there, or at G Radjokovich. Happy to connect with any educators, love sharing ideas and collaborating with people around the globe. So I look forward to that.
I'll make sure the links to those are in the podcast description as well. Glenn, thank you so much for your time today.
Real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
A tool that has positively impacted the authentic and purposeful use of technology into classrooms and meeting rooms that I have worked in is Wix. Over the past few months, I've been doing a lot of self-learning and growing, and one of those areas is website development. My Mr. Kemp NZ website was built many, many years ago with the help of a professional using WordPress with the intention of being a place to blog, share, and grow professionally. Since developing my own consultancy company, I needed a new space to grow, develop, and connect, and that's what I've been building. My new website, IgniteEdTech.com, launched this week, and I'm thrilled at how simple and straightforward it looks. This time, I used Wix. From beginning to end, Wix made it simple, and this is not a paid promotion. I absolutely loved the experience, and the fact I was able to do it all on my own made it even more rewarding. The Wix website builder is intuitive and straightforward and would be easy for any learner, young or old. In the past, I've always used Google Sites with students, but I think after this experience, I'd revisit Wix as an option for the youngest of learners. The professional layouts and templates add so much power over its most straightforward-looking competitors. As a learner and leader of learning, I encourage you to sign up for a free Wix account and check it out for yourself and for your students and colleagues. I'm very proud of my new Ignite EdTech website and would love for you to check it out and share. The link is in the podcast description below. This week, I wanted to give a little more advice and ideas around the theme of developing a positive EdTech culture. When thinking about school culture, people automatically think of positivity. Having a great school culture doesn't necessarily mean it's focused on positivity. I like to think of an effective school culture to be focused on success and giving people pathways to be effective, and of course a helping hand when required. Support is critical and people need to feel welcomed in any environment. I have worked in a variety of environments and very few of them have made me feel like I can be successful, and there are support networks and pathways to allow me to do that. That's why I like to focus on culture and strategy with schools when implementing successful plans for the future. Strategy drives success, but success only occurs in environments that are supportive, forward-thinking, and driven. It's a little like looking after a plant and helping it grow. Trees will grow when they're looked after, given space, have people to support them by giving them everything they need in order to be successful. Schools and organizations are no different. Leaders in schools need to give their people opportunities to be successful, a supportive environment in which to flourish, and time to do it with space to grow. I firmly believe that 70% or more of this responsibility sits with the school or organisation. It's your job as a school to create an environment that's open, transparent, and supportive of every single person within it. Provide spaces and opportunities for people to grow, learn, and flourish. That is where culture begins. The other 30% lies with the individual, as I gave details of over the past few weeks on this podcast. Set goals, work towards success stories, and put a plan in place in order to achieve it. The support network around you will be able to guide you and get you there, but you have to be willing to put in the hard yards to get there. It starts and ends with your willingness to learn and grow. So with this in mind, how do you develop a positive EdTech culture? What are the steps to take, and how do you get momentum and positive energy from your team? Your context is different to the next person's, so when I'm sharing some ideas now, it's important to contextualize it for you and your environment. When it comes to EdTech strategy and EdTech culture, the first people I look at are the teachers. When I ask them a simple question, like, what technology do you use in your classroom and why, it's easy to see their attitudes to it and the way that they respond. I like to do a human resources audit in schools for this exact reason. Talking to people helps understand where you are and where you need to be to grow and develop. I challenge you to ask some simple questions of the people in your school to help move forward. EdTech culture is no different to school culture, and as a result, it's all about people. It starts with the way technology is placed in front of them. How easy is it to use, and most importantly for teachers, if it helps or hinders their job. If a piece of technology is dumped in a teacher's classroom with no training, support, or rationale, it will most likely not be used and will be perceived pretty poorly. However, if a well-thought-out rollout strategy is in place, teachers are involved in the process, the rationale is justified, and training is provided, then teachers are likely to see the benefits and use it. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and if you want your initiatives to be successful, then invest time in culture building and invest time in your people. Listen to them, talk to them, and most importantly, help them be successful. In your school, you want people who want to learn, and you want people to try new things and take risks in the way that they do that in order to continue growing, developing, and leading the way with EdTech. They don't have to be experts, they just have to be willing to give things a go. Over the coming weeks, I challenge you to do a mini human resources audit of your teachers. Ask them questions and identify areas of strengths and needs. Start thinking of areas where EdTech culture is strong and jump on it and push it front and center. But most importantly, you must always identify areas where EdTech culture is low and people are struggling. Write down 3 ways in which you could improve the culture and talk to your leadership team about how to make this a reality. As always, if you're stuck or need some ideas, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to give you some help, support, or tips via a message or email. I hope you get the opportunity to explore these ideas, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Every week, I bring you a short interview with some of my edu heroes, an engaging learning experience with someone who makes a difference in education every day, with a particular focus or angle towards educational technology. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with global education leader and CEO of Getting Smart, Tom Vander. Let's have a listen. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Tom Vander. You might know him as T Vander on Twitter, with over 59,000 followers, where he is a constant source of inspiration. Tom is passionate about innovations in learning and is the CEO of Getting Smart. Getting Smart is a learning design firm that helps education and learning-focused organizations increase their impact with strategy, design, growth, publication, and learner experience services. Tom, it is an incredible pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk education and technology integration?
Hey, great to be with you.
Let's do this. Why don't you start by describing your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
Getting Smart is, as you said, a learning design firm. We provide advocacy and advisory services that help education leaders figure out what to do next. So we try to identify emerging issues and turn those into campaigns and invite other leaders to help us sort of illuminate the path forward. We're really excited about engaging young people in community-connected projects. We have a brand new book out called The Power of Place. So right now we're pretty excited about connecting kids with the place they're from and helping them learn what they can from the community as the classroom.
That sounds brilliant. And sort of what got you to where you are today? Tell us a little bit about your journey in education.
I had a 15-year business career first before really discovering my passion for community building and education. I had the chance to become a system head in Washington State, and then helped launch the Gates Foundation, and it was there that I began visiting high schools, mostly in the United States, and I've been to about 2,500 high schools now, and so I'm perhaps most passionate about helping young people connect with their possible future, and help educators think about developing learning pathways that really connect young people to opportunity.
That sounds amazing. What excites you about education today?
Well, we're at this interesting transition in human history to begin using digital tools to transform how we learn and grow. I've been active for 20 years in technology integration, and while I'm disappointed that we're not farther along than we are, with this global pandemic, it has become obvious worldwide that there's massive inequities in each state, within each country, and between countries. So we have a long ways to go to provide the opportunity for every young person on earth to really be able to access a powerful personal education, but that's clearly within reach.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I think the equity to devices and equitable access is a huge topic of conversation highlighted by the COVID-19 situation. I'm 100% agreeing on that. What's your best advice for educators in relation to EdTech? I mean, right now we've got people all over the world in lockdown, some coming out of lockdown, some schools reopening, some teachers having to do things now that they've never had to do before in relation to technology. What's your best piece of advice for educators around the world?
Yeah, in short, it's to work together. Last year, I published a book called Better Together that argued that educators are really trying to do 4 or 5 really complicated things simultaneously. We're trying to adopt a broader set of goals, broader aims that better reflect the innovation economy, the novelty and complexity that young people are experiencing. We're trying to develop or adopt new learning models that reflect those broader aims. We're trying to build schools around those learning experiences, and we're trying to build community support for these innovations. And each one of those is extraordinarily difficult individually. We're also trying to build technology stacks that reflect those school models and learning models. And so our advice is to work together with other like-minded people and borrow what you can. Try to adopt models that or adapt models that make sense to you, but don't try to figure everything out on your own. It's while there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, there's also a lot of complexity. So look for models that make sense to you and your community, and join networks, whether they're formal or informal, to keep learning and to take advantage of people that might be a step or two ahead of you.
So talking about networks there, Tom, tell us about your choice of professional learning networks, or PLNs. Where do you engage, and who should we be connecting with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I utilize a set of informal as well as formal learning networks. So I learn, you mentioned Twitter before. I certainly connect with thousands of education leaders on Twitter several times a day. I use a couple other social networks. I think you don't have to use them all, but pick a few that seem useful to you and people that you respect. Then I really appreciate, in the United States, there are networks of systems, things like League of Innovative Schools, that connect leaders to each other. We think those are really powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's just one of many, right? And I work with schools and organizations all over the globe, and I think one of my most important pieces of advice for everyone listening is join a professional learning network. It doesn't matter if it's a Twitter or a social form of professional learning network. I mean, at your school right now, you have the best form of professional learning network. You have teachers who are doing the same thing day in, day out. And just outside of your school, you have other professionals who are looking to support you in any way, shape, and form. And it's not silly to go and ask for help and ask people for things. And just like you said, the philanthropy arms of companies are there to support you. So go out there and ask. The worst that can happen is you can get shot down, and there'll be another 100 of those conversations that you can have after that.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's an exciting time when there's really great opportunity for both learners and education leaders, but it means that we have to be humble in complexity and be quick to ask good questions. We really want to model that sort of both intellectual humility and intellectual curiosity for our learners.
Agreed. At this time, Tom, we've got so many people being challenged in so many ways, and technology is one of those things that has really pushed and challenged a lot of people. What is one EdTech tool that you currently love using in your day-to-day work that you think all of the listeners here today should also be involved with?
Yeah, it's a great question. The one that has been introduced to my life, like many of your listeners, is Zoom. I now spend 6 or 7 hours a day on Zoom. I know a lot of educators either love or hate Zoom, but I would say that after 25 years in the online learning space, where we were limited to a learning management system and maybe an occasional text message, the ability to add synchronous meetings on a daily basis is such a wonderful addition to remote learning. The ability to connect really face to face via video chat, like I said, at least once a day is so important to keep that human connection. So I know a lot of learners and educators are really struggling with isolation right now, but I do really appreciate the opportunity to connect with people via video.
And I think on that note as well, learning is so important to educators, and learning is important to all of us. What's one book or one resource that you've been reading lately, or just one of your all-time favorites? Tell us a little bit about it and why we should be exploring it as well.
Well, it'd start with my new book called The Power of Place. We think we hope that's a great resource for people to really connect with the local resources around them. One book from 2018 that I found really provocative that I'm still wrestling with is called A New You from Ryan Craig. And it's a new take on further and higher education, where Ryan really recommends that people take a hard look at what he calls a hard sprint to a good first job, to remind young people to be cautious about expensive higher education and racking up a lot of debt, and to really take advantage of all the exciting new pathways that are both free and debt-free to really good employment, and to think of higher education not just as 4 years that come after high school, but a lifelong affair as we work and learn. So I found that a really provocative book that has invited me and other leaders to think hard about the post-secondary landscape and the kind of advice that I've been giving young people.
Tom, you've given us so many nuggets of wisdom today. What's the best way for the listeners to follow and connect with you?
Twitter's a great one. At T Vanderark. I try to write on a regular basis for both Forbes and gettingsmart.com. So find me there. If you like to cook, go to Instagram and find epic.veg, and I try to post something fun to cook and eat every day. I also try to, at Tom Vanderark on Instagram, try to find something beautiful to share every day, and find that it helps me pay attention to the world.
I think that's so critical at times like this, that true holistic balance, and I love that you've got that. So I'm sure you're going to have a few more followers after people have listened to this. Hey, thank you so much for your time today, Tom. I really appreciate all of your wisdom and insights.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Next week, join me for episode 12 of the EdTech Chat Podcast when I am joined by EdTech enthusiast, librarian, and accomplished author Jennifer Casa-Todd. Last week, Schoolbox gave away 1 hour of free consultancy support to help you create a more seamless ed stack. To win, you needed to complete the form at bit.ly/edtechwin. The winner has already been contacted directly by me, and it is Tristan Mayer. Congratulations, Tristan. Also last week, Tony Ryan gave away 3 copies of his book, The Next Generation, and 3 copies of his Thinker's Keys. The winners of the books are Michelle Beatty, Cherry Filipposi, and Majda Benzanetta. And the winners of the Thinker's Keys sets are Bushra Afrin, Shem Bambury, and Drew Janetsky. Congratulations to you all. This week, our sponsor Schoolbox is giving away another hour of free consultancy to help you create a more seamless ed stack. This hour can be used however you want, so get entering. To win the hour of consultancy support from Schoolbox, you need to go to bit.ly/edtechwin and complete the simple form. It'll take you 1 minute to complete. The link is in the description below. Competition closes on Wednesday the 22nd of July, and the winner will be contacted directly by me and announced on next Friday's podcast episode. Good luck. If you enjoyed today's episode, please smash that subscribe button and share it with your colleagues, friends, and families. I really do appreciate your support. Please remember to spend 2 minutes to rate this podcast too, so we can reach even more educators and EdTech enthusiasts globally. Please share your favourite part of today's episode by tagging me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And don't hesitate to ask me questions that I can answer in an upcoming episode. Remember, you have the chance to win as well. Check out the links in the description below for more, and I'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the EdTech Chat Podcast, creating a community for educators to learn, share, and grow. If you like today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and be in the drawing to win prizes every week. If you know others that would enjoy the show, please hit that share button and brighten their day. Join us again next week for your weekly EdTech hit with @Mr. Kemp NZ. We'll see you again soon.